Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, Ed, aka SavageTechman. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Geek Homeworld. I'm your host, Ed, aka SavageTechman, and joining me once again is the wonderfully profound
Profound. How about that? Profound. I like that.
Tell everybody who you are again.
I've been called worst.
Even called worst.
Worst. Yeah, that's a good start right there.
Bratwurst? I don't know. We're talking about in this episode, and this is going to be full of spoilers, not because we dislike the movie, just because in interest of time in getting this out, I just want to make sure that I can't hold it in. So we enjoyed this movie. We're talking about Thor Ragnarok. So if you have not seen the movie by the time you hear this episode of the podcast, which, by the way, is at Geek Homeworld on Twitter. We're on Libsyn. You know the places. Thank you to, before I get started, thank you to all of our new listeners, especially on YouTube. We really appreciate the feedback, and I've actually taken the feedback of one of my listeners, and you'll hear a difference in a part of this episode. And I want you to respond on YouTube and let me know if you notice the difference, okay? So we do listen to our fans, and we appreciate all of you out there. We do have a nice big worldwide following, so it's good to always get new people aboard, people that are passionate about things. Our last episode was about Star Trek and the Orville, and we got a lot of responses back from that. So thank you very much. Really do appreciate your positive response. Very intelligent responses on that. Can't say enough about that. But anyway, we are getting into a spoiler-filled episode of
Thor Ragnarok.
Thank you. Yeah, and by the way, my voice is, I'm having man flu. I was up to about a level 2 man flu. That means sore throat and a little bit more. So I'm kind of recovering from that. So I have the emperor voice. I have that deep, dark voice. Like
I've got somebody to contend with now.
Anakin, choose your destiny. Anyway, when that excites me, that makes me think about Star Wars. But I'm getting off on a tangent here. Let's focus on Thor, the god of thunder. Why not the god of lightning?
Yeah, it would make more sense, especially with how this movie plays out. But
what are you the god of anyway? So, yeah, let's just jump right in. So spoilers and everything. First off, my first thought is, how do we rank this amongst all the three Thor movies? Thor movies, including Thor the Dark World, and Thor Ragnarok.
Well, for me, it's easy. I mean, it's the best one.
This is the best Guardians of the Galaxy I've seen.
It is a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That's what we're talking about today. But yeah, it does have that vibe, so I enjoyed it more. It's more fun, and I think that's the way that Marvel is tending to go. You know, the first two, it didn't seem to work, I think, as well. And then Guardians worked so well, they were like, okay, let's transfer that tone over to Thor and see if it works, and I think it did.
Well, just like Deadpool for X-Men opened the door
for Logan.
Well, open the door for R-rated and open the door for Logan, correct. And just like Logan is possibly going to affect how future Logan movies are made. And FYI, Hugh Jackman recently came out and said that he would like to see Wolverine recast. So that's him finally saying, okay, yeah, I am truly done with it. And couldn't have been a better way to go out than Logan like he did. Correct. But that's another conversation for another time. But when we look at Guardians, changed the game too for Marvel, like you said. Sure. It brought in humor. It brought in characters that 90% of people other than really true comic book, I don't want to say nerds, but geeks or whatever, true comic book fans knew about the Guardians, and a lot of people didn't. The general public didn't. And those movies have been wildly successful, and they've changed the course of, like the Joker said in The Dark Knight, you've changed things. So
it absolutely did, and you could see Guardian's stamp on this movie. I mean,
totally from even the beginning, the first trailer, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, tonally, of course, just the more humor and, it's more slapstick.
This is basically Thor Ragnarok is a comedy.
It's a comedy.
And it just happens to have some supernatural elements to it and all that. It's got some interesting father, son, and daughter elements to it. Mm-hmm. So it's all about family issues. It's a family affair, as the song says. Right. So me personally, I just agree with you. It was the funnest movie. You actually got to see it in 3D IMAX, which is the ultimate. I saw it in 2D, but it still didn't diminish it for me. Did I need to see it in 3D and IMAX? No, but do I need to see every movie in that? No, but would I rather? Yes, of course. But, it's either that or pay the mortgage. So got to say that for maybe Justice League. We probably have to see that in IMAX, definitely 3D coming up. And we're excited for that too. And, but thinking of the tone, as you mentioned, of Thor and then Thor, the Dark World, and then you see Ragnarok obviously stands out. It's like the third child that really
it doesn't
is so different.
Fit. Yeah,
it doesn't fit at all. And this is one instance where that's a glorious thing, because the Dark World I enjoyed it. It takes a lot for me to really dislike a movie. You've really got to poop in the face of continuity and really screw with a lot of things before I'm going to turn against your movie. Yeah. But I see the fact that what they did here made it even more enjoyable. Because had we gotten a third, I don't know that we would have gotten a third Thor movie if it was in the same vein as The Dark World, because The Dark World was okay. It felt like a means to an end, a plot point that it had to connect to get us closer to Infinity War. But And this is also, don't get me wrong on Ragnarok, but the thing about it is, had we got something in the same tone as that, it wouldn't have been as exciting. It wouldn't have gotten that, I think, that it's gotten in ratings from the general public, and really some very big box office. I think like 22 million.
Yeah.
So that's
big numbers, and be interesting to see in a week from now when Justice League comes out. What the numbers will be.
I'm telling you, Justice League is going to open big, and if they don't get this right, if this movie does not click, then and if Wonder Woman, especially since Wonder Woman did so well, if Justice League does not treat Wonder Woman basically with the respect she deserves after her wonderful solo movie there's going to be problems for DC. If this movie doesn't work, I think it's going to work, though. There's nothing about it that makes me feel bad, but I feel like I've been burned before. This is someone that you've possibly dated before, and they're kind of dark and mysterious, but then you're kind of like, they won't hurt me again, but I'm going to take one more chance, and if this doesn't work, okay, we're done.
From just the trailers of Justice League, my initial reaction is that they're definitely going to feature Wonder Woman heavy. Yeah. And then, but the person that's going to steal the film, in my opinion, is going to be the Flash. Like, everybody's seen the Flash for the first time.
He brings the humor that was missing in Batman versus Superman.
Right. Absolutely.
Our brooding Superman. Yeah. Come on.
But,
I want Superman. I know Superman's going to come back somehow, be resurrected in this, like in the comics. But I want him to come back, and I want him to be, I guess if he has to be dark, he has to go through his little emo phase. That's fine. But, I eventually want to see our Superman being bright and the symbol of hope. Okay, he was a symbol of hope, as Batman says in the trailer. And boy, we're getting off topic here.
Yeah, let's revert from let's go back to Marvel. Yeah, and we can go. Let's transition from one emo to the other. Kate Blanchett's Hela is a little emo.
She's very emo, but she seems to be having fun being an emo. So
yeah, and
more power to her.
That introduction of the eldest sister was a nice little storyline there. As you said, like the first two films are more about fathers and sons and brothers, and now you bring in the sister.
This is the Brady Bunch, basically.
Yeah, of course.
Where's
Alice?
But or Dallas, which is now being rebooted.
No, Alice.
Oh, would you say
Alice?
Oh, I said Dallas.
No.
That's okay. I hear what I want to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all part of the plan. Actually, there's no plan. Yeah, and Kate Blanchett, she just looks like she just has fun playing this role. Like, I'm here to destroy you. You should worship me. It's like, I can't even.
And she's brilliant as a villain. You don't see her do that much.
Right.
I mean, I can't think of her much. Maybe Cinderella, but then maybe a few others. But she's really great as a villain.
It's so interesting, and this is the dynamic I wanted to talk about since, of course, we brought Hela into this, and basically her and her dad, there's been this false narrative that it was Thor, it was Odin, and then there was Thor and Loki, and you find out that basically Odin was pretty much, he was a hard ass.
There's this whole brutal history that we
that was
aware of,
washed over or whatever.
Right.
And Hela brings her perspective, and that's where you kind of empathize a little bit with her character. She's just not. She's like, I'm not a monster, And you find out basically she was cast away because she enjoyed the role too much of the destruction that her and her father were going around doing.
And he has a change of heart.
Odin has the change of heart. And then what's interesting, when Odin passes away in this movie and, dissolves into whatever he does, into the universe or whatever, there's that really important moment with the two sons there. And this is right before Hela arrives. And Odin knows that his time is done and that Hela's time has come. So he's held back the floodgates for this long, and now it's time for the daughter to supplant the father, and she's bringing her own brand of justice, as it were.
And the prophecy of Ragnarok.
Which Thor could have avoided that, but he actually was the one to bring about Ragnarok. I mean, she was the instrument of it, and the releases. And I'm sorry, I don't know who I forgot who the big demon looking dude. I don't remember the name. Cersei Lannister, yeah.
Cersei.
So Cersei Lannister
is wide reaching, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I wouldn't mess with her either. She's a strong character. I love it. But anyway, so he brings about that monster and allows him to destroy Asgard. So, were you right on that?
Yeah, Surtur. Yeah.
Okay, good. Like I said, Cersei. So I was almost right. No, not at all. So. Very interesting because of that dynamic. I really enjoyed that little passage of the torch, and you're passing the lighted torch to Hela, who takes the torch. I imagine the torch turns dark and the flame goes out, and it becomes a blue flame of like darkness, and and then she's not malevolent necessarily, but she's fulfilling her role, but she's remaking the universe in her image, and there's a lot of like philosophical avenues you could go to in that. But in the end, Thor discovers power he never knew he had within. He didn't need to depend on his little hammer there.
Which Hela just crumbles.
Yeah, she didn't blink an eyelash. Those big eyelashes. She didn't blink any of them, And she just like totally destroys everything that's Thor. And so in writing of this film, I can see the writer sitting around and saying, we're going to take everything about Thor and we're going to turn it on its ear. And then we're going to get Stan Lee to cut his hair.
Right. Hammer gone.
Hair gone. But Stan Lee, what a great hairdresser.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he did a great job with Thor's hair. So, I mean, hey, pretty good. Kudos to Stan. So what else? Let's see. we were, let's see. I want to dedicate this episode to someone we just talked about that we lost. It's been a good friend of ours, and I say this with a heavy heart, because it's been a part of Thor's life, Mjolnir, his hammer, and I was like, oh my God. When I saw that trailer, jaw dropped. I was like, that and the tone of it, I was like, oh no, I lost my hammer. I lost my hair. I get to hang out with my new buddy. He's a guy from work. Hulk.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the big theme with this one is him losing his,
hammer, his
the identity
instrument
that he knows.
Right. He lost his identity, and he always channeled his power, like Odin kind of told him. He channeled it through the hammer, but he never needed the hammer.
Right.
Even when he was in the first Thor movie, when he was made unworthy, in the hammer, he couldn't do anything with the hammer, and he had Coulson in there and everybody, and then all of a sudden he becomes worthy because he kind of thinks of someone else besides himself. There's so many, lessons to be learned there. But what Thor does when he gets the hammer back, it's, he's Thor again. But in this one, you realize that he never needed that hammer, that what he had, what he needed, he already had. And so, that's a good universal truth there to...
Oh,
I know I'm getting deep here, deep in something. Cinematography, let's talk about that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the technical aspect, the look of this film, again, it definitely borrows from Guardians.
Yes, heavily.
It looks a lot like, the battle sequences, just the colors and
pretty colors,
and the production design. It's so similar, and it works. I mean, it works. It's stunning, really.
It's so in your face, the production. I like that. It just
right. It brings you into that world really easily.
It's Thor totally coming into his own in so many ways, and he shed the dark world, persona, and he was the shining kind of knight in the first one. And this one, he has just transformed into something beyond all of that, and he just kind of really is so. I know that they so make him human in this one, and there's so many things about this. He's no longer just that, Norse god or whatever. He is very human, and he can crack a joke, and he's vulnerable. Yeah, very good point. He's very vulnerable. They take everything that he has to stand on, and he's got to learn to get up. And it's kind of like, why do we fall, Master Wayne? So we can learn to get up again. There we go. There's a DC reference for you.
Yeah, we're left the universe again.
Yeah, I'm multi-universe. I'm sorry, I don't have a problem going between universes.
Well, how about the storyline? What did you think?
I enjoyed the pace of Ragnarok, and it just felt right in length. It didn't feel like the movie was too long.
No,
it felt like.
I'll agree with you on that point. My only criticism was maybe it wasn't entirely original. It kind of felt like we've seen it a little bit, but it didn't bother me that much. But yeah, the pacing was just right. It was over 2 hours long. Didn't feel like it.
Didn't feel like it at all. And I feel like there's not much I can criticize. There are things I can criticize in this movie, but all in all, I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to see it again.
And as far as like story and script goes, from what I've read, like evidently 80% is what they said. 80% was improvised.
Wow.
Because the director, I'm probably not going to say it right, but Taika Waititi, he's New Zealand, and he's done a lot of comedies. So, it was, and it's obvious,
Obviously, this was a comedy.
So they were evidently encouraged to ad-lib, to keep a good rapport and, to get the best, humor out of it as they could.
Totally. The sound, I thought the sound was totally epic. I love the score in this thing.
Especially in the IMAX where I saw it. Yeah.
Where I saw it.
Is it worth that extra couple bucks?
I'm jealous. That's okay.
No, it was the sound was epic, absolutely,
and it fit the total framework of the film. Now, something we were talking of, rights to use music in productions, and they used "Immigrant Song" by this small little garage band called Led Zeppelin. You might have heard of them.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I think I've heard of them.
You've heard of them, yeah.
They are notoriously stingy with their rights, their licensing rights. It's very difficult to get any rights to their songs because their asking price is insane. It's said to be 7 figures.
But there's a mouse who's got money just growing on trees.
Yep.
And
Marvel benefited for sure from teaming up with Disney now because Disney money gave them the ability to purchase Immigrant Song, and it's used perfectly twice in the film.
It's not overdone. It works with those slow stop motion kind of battles of the Valkyrie.
Right, and the song itself, the Zeppelin song, was written, they wrote it about the Norse gods, and it ties in perfectly with that, and the director... absolutely, talking about Valhalla and being victorious,
Yeah, it was totally with Valhalla, and I love that they brought the Valkyrie in there, one of the main characters, and she survived the battle, and you see in that flashback that was pretty awesome. That was she was called Valkyrie in there. She was a strong female character, and I love that. That was Tessa Thompson. What a brilliant job she did. And it's so funny because it's like, when she picks up Thor and they've got him in he's in that like garbage place or whatever, where he comes through one of the wormholes or whatever. And so he's down there and she's like, I don't care. She's like, you're just garbage to me. She's just so strong and she just like takes all the people out. It's just fascinating. And I'm kind of jumping into characters already. Let's start with the main man, Krim. That's his new name. That's his club name, Krim Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth, Thor, the god of lightning.
I mean, obviously, with the tone shift, the acting changes a little bit too. So, he showed his comedic chops in Ghostbusters.
Which I know a lot of people out there hated Ghostbusters. They hated the female Ghostbusters version. I thought it was good. One of the funniest things about that movie were the after credit scenes with his character. If you've not seen that, I challenge you to go through that and try to keep a straight face. Chris Hemsworth. Crimsworth. He will now be known as Crimsworth, okay? So Crimsworth, he did a wonderful job in that, but yeah, he does have the comedic chops. So, and of course, my wife's favorite, Tom Hiddleston, Loki. Loki. It's kind of like I could watch a Samuel Jackson movie where he reads the phone book, and I would go see that. She would watch Loki. She just loves the character of Loki.
I will say, after as far as the casting goes and all the Thor movies, like they got the right guy for Loki I think he's perfect for any role more so than any other actor.
I think originally he wasn't going to be as prominent in the Marvel movies, but everybody just loves him, and rightfully so. But I know why he's jealous of Thor throughout all the Thor movies. Because Thor has better hair.
Yeah.
Thor has better hair products, and Loki just got the greaser look, and that works for him, okay? But even in this movie, he didn't get a hairdo, but it works. I'm joking there. I don't need the god of mischief after me. But you can never trust Loki, and they even say it in that movie. He's like, "You're going to betray me. I'm going to trust you."
It's very meta in this. Like they're basically telling the audience you can't they're verbally saying you can't trust Loki.
Yeah, and what you're seeing now is not gonna. You can't take him at his word. Like several times, like when Loki appears to him, he's like, "Are you really here?" He throws the little cup when Thor's captured.
I think that's the appeal to that character is that it is he toes that line between good and bad, and he's back and forth. And
right. Yeah. Now, Mark Ruffalo, because we're not getting a Incredible Hulk movie possibly ever again for possible legal reasons, and for some reason people won't go see an Incredible Hulk movie, which I don't understand. They just won't support it. It's been some of the lowest versions, the Ang Lee Hawk, the Incredible Hulk.
They haven't even tried it in this universe.
They did. They had the they had Hawk with Ang Lee, and then they recast it with, that was Edward Norton. Then they had Mark Ruffalo with the, was it the Incredible Hulk? I don't know if it was Incredible Hulk. What was it called?
They did a stand. Okay.
Yeah, but it did
silly.
about the same box office. So of all the movies in the Marvel universe, the Hulk movies just have underperformed. They just haven't lit a fire under people, because really it's a guy with anger management issues. But I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, he's the most fun to watch destroy stuff.
He is, and I loved Mark Ruffalo's performance in like Age of Ultron is so important between him and Tony. You know, when they're talking together and they're making, you know, just the genius of him, and you see that in his character, because in the movie here, which is really cool, when they're fighting, they say the Incredible Hulk. So the first time we hear the Incredible Hulk, which, you know, takes it back to the TV show, you know, throwback there, which, you know, as a geek from a long time back, I appreciated that. But Mark Ruffalo is more, he's a Tony Stark level kind of intellect, if not more, but he is vulnerable. And like you said, we see him at his most vulnerable after he's been the Hulk for 2 years nonstop.
For 2 years.
You know, in this timeline. So
he realizes that, you know, there may be a time where he could be trapped inside the Hulk's body. And
puny banner. But, you know, did you love the nod to when Loki sees the Hulk show up, and he's pretty much weasel his way, as Loki does, to the Grandmaster, which is Jeff Goldblum. And he's like, "Do you know this guy?" No. And but he takes Thor and he does that whole boom 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 puny god thing like he did in Avengers to Loki. Hulk did. Like and I was like, "Oh snap!" And then they show Loki, and you're like, "Oh man, there's the payoff." And I would be, you know, pooping my pants if I were Loki at that point, you know. But I love the vulnerability of this. He brings the fun to it. I mean, he still has the fun, Hemsworth and Ruffalo, when they're talking about him being the Hulk and not being the Hulk, and he ends up in Tony Stark's clothes. Right. That's
it's a way to bring in Tony Stark without, you know, they tried to bring in every character, even if it's just the essence, you know.
Yeah, those little that's another Easter egg that I love, you know, and it's sort of an Easter egg there.
He's wearing the I can't remember the name of the artist, but it's like the Duran Duran.
It was a Rio T-shirt, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it may not even been Duran Duran. But
I think it was Duran Duran. I really do think,
that,
but it was an '80s reference, obviously, and I love that. And you Duranis out there, I'm sure you do too. So
talking about, you know, there is a kind of a theme of vulnerability with Tessa Thompson. She's the lone survivor of the Valkyrie, and she, you know, the first time we see her, she's, you know, at the bottom of a bottle.
Yeah, you know, she's drowning her sorrows.
Yeah, as far as that goes, because, you know, as survivors do, I guess she's got a little, you know, PTSD. I imagine.
If you've seen all of your fellow warriors get totally wiped out, and you're the only survivor, as far as we know, or definitely one of the only survivors, and then to face Hela again is a lot about overcoming your fears. There's so many messages in this film that I didn't realize.
Absolutely, that's a major
wrapped in the comedy.
That's a major arc of the film. It's the Valkyrie storyline is I think essential to the story.
Now, I know Cheryl. She wasn't able to make it for this episode. She originally was going to be on here, and I'm not sure if you said this or if she said this, but it felt like the Hulk and Thor part of the movie was totally separate from Hela's story, in a sense that it didn't really matter. It didn't really affect too much what Hulk and Thor had going on there, their little buddy movie that was going on, the subplot in here. Yes, it did tie in a little bit to the overall story, obviously, and they fought together and all, but it felt like almost two different movies, I think, was what she was getting at. And I could see that a little bit, but all in all, I mean, I still think it functioned well as a complete unit of a movie
Yeah.
and a storyline. We've talked about Kate Blanchett, who is the first female villain, and
in the films, I think
she's the
there's
first
one in the
female?
TV show, but in exactly, it doesn't really count. The films, she's definitely the first Marvel female villain, and she
plays it deliciously.
Oh God, she's fantastic,
And she's a great actress, and she just, I believe her as hella. And I love the costume. The costumers did a wonderful job on her costume. It looks like probably what the Goddess of Death should look like. And
some of that, of course, is costume, and then they had to do CGI, of course, when she's flipping around and killing people. And evidently Kate Blanchett studied a Brazilian martial art before this. Talk about getting into a character, and she also did this for her kids.
That's what I was going to ask. Had you mentioned that? Yeah. Her kids thought it would be a good career move, as you said.
Right. Yeah. Her eldest son evidently told her that she should do it because it would be a career boost. So
you don't listen to your managers. Don't listen to anybody. Listen to your kids. Your kids know what's cool. Joking, but
after
they probably do.
A couple of Oscars, and
she's like, I'll listen to my kids on
one
this
of the greatest living actresses, but she needs a career boost.
Yeah, and now Benedict Cumberbatch,
yeah, we're getting we're getting into our
Doctor Strange,
a little more lesser screen time.
But he was an important part, because you had Thor. That scene basically that we saw was kind of a redo of. And taking it further, expanding that scene where you see Thor sitting there drinking the beer, and Cumberbatch, it was really, you picked up on some things like when we go up to Doctor Strange's residence.
Yes, I don't know how many of you out there watch Sherlock Holmes, but it was definitely a nod to the TV series, the BBC TV series with Benedict Cumberbatch, where it zooms in on the address on the side of the building, and exactly like it does in Sherlock Holmes. And then in the background, there's the harpsichord music that is constant in the Sherlock Holmes movies episodes. So,
right. Now, this is related to Benedict Cumberbatch, but it's a little bit off topic, but I promise to make this quick. It'll be a quick little sidebar here. But on Halloween, my wife and I had the privilege in the SCAD Film Festival in our hometown here, Savannah College of Art and Design. They had their 20th film festival, and one of the highlights of it, definitely a highlight for me, was seeing, it was a 2011 performance at the Lucas Theater in town, and they had Benedict Cumberbatch as Frankenstein, and it was on Halloween, it was told from the point of view of Frankenstein's monster. And the physicality, the first 20 minutes, he was just learning to walk and kind of grunt talk and stuff like that. Brilliant physicality. What a great actor Cumberbatch is.
Cumberbatch played the monster?
He was Frankenstein's monster, okay. Yes. And to see the world through his eyes was very fascinating. And we have an episode on our podcast called Franking Geek, which happens to be our most popular episode ever. And Cheryl does that one, and she is very keen on Frankenstein adaptations from Mary Shelley's, and there's been so many ways it's been done wrong, and she talks about how it's been done correctly, and she enjoyed the Cumberbatch version of the play that we saw live. Well, it was recorded live from London or something like that, but it was just, Cumberbatch is just so consummate. But in Thor Ragnarok, those scenes with that, and then Loki, he has Loki just pop in because he's using magic on Loki, and Loki tries to do something to him.
Falling for 30 minutes.
Yeah, I know. It's hilarious. So then we have, moving right along, Odin with Anthony Hopkins, and we have a play in there where there's certain people that I did not pick up on the cameos, and you did on there. They had when Thor comes to Ragnarok, not Ragnarok, he comes back to Asgard. We had the cameo with Matt Damon, Luke Hemsworth, and Sam Neill.
Right, when you got the troupe of actors playing Loki.
And they were in the course of play was saying how great Loki was, and Loki was dying and all this, and then and Thor's like, "Hey, I'm right here."
This is the world Loki has built as Odin, and
exactly. And
the cameos
big statue to himself
were pretty funny. The actor Thor was Luke Hemsworth.
Right.
Is Chris's brother, who's lesser known. The only thing I know him from is Westworld. He was in the first season of Westworld.
Right.
And then actor Odin was Sam Neill.
In the play, yeah.
Yeah, and he people know him as Professor Grant in Jurassic Park. But
Right.
he was in Waititi's last film, so that was kind of the connection there.
Okay.
And then you got Matt Damon. He's the king of cameos, it seems. But yeah, he plays actor Loki, and I just thought about it, but in Dogma, his character's name was Loki.
It sure was. Oh, wow.
So there's another little.
There's a circle to draw.
So maybe that's because I was thinking, how and why does Matt Damon get on this set in a cameo? And maybe that's the connection. Maybe somebody said, "Hey, you played Loki, and let's get him." I don't. Who knows?
That is brilliant.
Know. But those
now
little cameos.
I want to go back and watch
fun.
Dogma.
Yeah, right.
Anything with George Carlin in it, I'm good.
But see, and talk about the king of cameos. He's made cameos in all of Kevin Smith's movies, and the Scotty Doesn't Know song in Euro Trip is actually a classic.
Right.
But yeah, the cameos were fun there. Of course, Stanley cuts
Thor's hair with that contraption. He does a really good job of that. Stan the man, I tell you. Now, the character of Heimdall, played by Idris Elba, who people have
gatekeeper.
Yeah, we know that we're going to get at least one more James Bond film with our Daniel Craig, but there has been a big groundswell for Idris Elba to take over, and he'd be the first African American James Bond, and why not? I'm all for it.
We're technical about it. He wouldn't be African American.
Would he not be?
He's British.
He is British. I think I'm trying to be too politically correct. I don't know.
It's not, but yeah, I'm sorry to nitpick.
He's the first. Okay, he's the first English person of color. Would that be? I don't know. I'm not trying to offend anybody or be smart.
No, I should just let it ride. Huh? Sorry.
No. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I would love to see him as
I get
Bond.
what you're saying. Yeah, and no, it would be cool
if that happens. I don't know.
It would be cool to see somebody other than a white man, and like a woman would be.
Well,
cool.
we saw a woman, didn't we?
Blonde, yeah.
Atomic Blonde. She could have totally been the next Bond. That could have been the female Bond movie for me, and that was a badass movie. Enjoyed it.
But yeah, I felt like maybe Elba's too busy, but he was barely in this, and
But his role was important. He led the people. He basically.
He was Moses.
Thank you. I was about to say he's basically Moses. Yeah. It just kind of occurred to me. He led the people out of Asgard into wherever they're going. There's so many different, depending on your background, so many different kind of things you can pull into this. A lot of universal themes that I didn't get until we started talking about them here. So let us know what your thoughts are about that at Geek Homeworld or on our YouTube channel. Anyway, so we're running a little long on time here, so we've got to kind of get through this. But Carl Urban and they call me Bones. That's all I got left are my bones.
His character, he
Scourge.
Was, he was good in this. He was the conflicted executioner.
yeah, definitely. He had that sort of redemption, and he fought against Hela. At first, it was total, like Valkyrie in the movie, it was total survival. She was hiding, and he was just silent obedient, because literally everybody gets killed in that room when she walks in.
It's like Eugene on The Walking Dead.
Right.
So, but yeah, the part
Eugene.
with Dez and Troy, with the two, that's one of the best parts when he gets to use, Des and Troy, destroy at the end, but
destroy.
But yeah, and then I thought a cool little nugget here too was Korg the Rockman was voiced by the director, Taika Waititi.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Heck, I would do it if I were the director. I'd be in there.
I wondered who it was the whole time because I was like, man, that sounds like the guy from Flight of the Conchords. And it was New Zealand. I just didn't. It was the wrong guy. But.
Right. So then we have, of course, the Grandmaster, Jeff Goldblum, who was just, what did you say?
He wasn't acting. And he would be my only real negative critique about the acting in this movie.
Even though he was very funny and integral to the storyline.
But it just came off as like, hey, I'm Jeff Goldblum. It's not like he wasn't really acting. He was just dressed up as the Grandmaster and talking and acting like Jeff Goldblum. And it was just, to me, that was a little distracting. And it
felt like 80 to 90% of his stuff was ad-libbed.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where they got the percentage. The rest of it was script. I don't know, but I'm sure it wasn't. But I enjoyed him in that. And, he makes movies fun. I mean, he's always been that bit of comic relief, and he definitely was there. Well, this didn't need comic relief. The whole movie was comic relief. It basically took Thor and kind of laughed at itself, but still kept itself credible in the storyline. It didn't make it seem, it didn't belittle Ragnarok or the end of all things for Asgardians.
And he had some great moments. The credit scene was funny, and also just little things like I don't like that word, when she uses the word slaves, that was kind of
that's true. Yeah, just I had my Idris Elba moment, and so now he had that moment too, and he's like, I don't like that word, and I agree. I mean, that was interesting. That's good social commentary there. So Loki, one of the things we had on there, Loki walking by the Tesseract.
Yeah.
And
I thought that was
don't know.
He picked it up.
Bill Maher says this on his show. He goes, I don't know that this is a fact. I just know it's true.
I just know it's true.
And this is how we feel about that. When Loki stopped and said, when he walks by the Tesseract, the whole bit of his power from Avengers and having the Tesseract and everything and all that's come before and since. And we know he picked it up.
He picked it up.
We know somehow he threw it in his pocket, threw it in another dimension, or whatever Loki can do. And we know he got that Tesseract, and we know
it did not blow up.
He would not let that happen. That's power, and there's still a chance for him to, be on top of the heap. And who knows when we get to Infinity War if that's going to be a pivotal moment. It probably will be. Oh gosh, I can't wait.
Yeah, that was one of the things to end on with this story. That was one of the last images you saw where he, walked by the Tesseract, and you have to assume he picked it up. Another last image was the huge ship, and I'm pretty sure that was Thanos.
Yeah, that's got to be Thanos. I wasn't sure because I had to think, okay, what does Thanos' ship look like? Does Thanos need a ship? I don't know. But because he can, I always do this. Thanos and Darkseid, I was like, well, Darkseid has boom tubes. He has the boom tubes where he can travel interdimensionally, and he has a planet Apocalypse with the K in there. But the Mad Titan himself, which is Thanos, I guess he has a ship. So,
no.
And he has that chair, and he grins, and he's courting death. Which at first I thought when they showed Hela, I thought Hela was death. So I don't know if Hela is death.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see.
She might still be trying to court her.
Like it seems to, like at the end of this, that she definitively is put to rest. Like she's killed. But in this world, you never.
Coulson died too, but that's another story.
Yeah, exactly. And Fury, and I mean,
nobody dies in Marvel. They just get injured.
Well, or DC, you got the Lazarus Pit. You got ways around these things. So
God,
it's just
how many people have gone through the Lazarus Pit? They must have to charge. Say, we're coming back again.
Charge admission.
I'm going through the Lazarus Pit. See you in a minute. I'll come back angry.
So yeah, like anytime somebody dies in these worlds, like it never feels real, and you expect to see him again. And I would love to see Cate Blanchett again. So
I would too. Yeah. Don't kill her. Yeah. Find a loophole. There's one. Trust me.
Yeah.
So our final thoughts on Thor Ragnarok. I I enjoyed it in IMAX 2D. I didn't see. Did I see it? We did see an IMAX 2D. I did see it in IMAX, but it was 2D. You saw it in IMAX 3D.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I felt it was worth it. It was.
Yeah. I had the fundage, I would have totally seen it in that. And it's a funny movie. Should you go see it? Yes, rush out and go see it, especially before Justice League comes out and takes it out of IMAX. Yeah. And then go support this movie. It's something you should get behind.
Yeah, and
you'll enjoy it.
I think if you're a supporter of all comic book, Marvel and DC, go see this one before Justice League comes out so you can pump up Justice League's numbers too. How about that?
Yeah, go out and support Justice League. Because I want to see. I've got no problem with my Batman is Batfleck. I'm on the Batfleck bandwagon. Whether this is the last time we see Batfleck or not, I think he's done a wonderful job with it. As best as probably any actor can do. Suicide Squad, I'm not a lover of that movie. Even though I see how it dramatically affected Justice League, and the tone of Justice League has changed. It's changed during the production from what it was because of the backlash from Batman versus Superman, this is a long sentence, which, and I'll let you finish there, but which Batman versus Superman, if you see the Ultimate Edition, as I've always said, you will appreciate the movie more. And I challenge you all to go back and watch that long 3-hour version and then come back and you'll have a better appreciation for it. But I think Justice League is just going to correct some of the wrongs or perceived wrongs, and I think it's going to make it right.
Yeah, and I believe that these people know what they're doing.
Oh, definitely.
So if there's a misstep, like, say, some people say Thor Dark World was, or a misstep like Suicide Squad, or, they learn from their mistakes and they're going to make it. And I think Ragnarok is a prime example of that. They learn from their mistakes.
They're like, we're not going to make Thor Ragnarok, Thor 3 or Thor the Dark World 2. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And again, I think...
And that was a smart move.
Yeah, and I think DC is starting to do that too. Wonder Woman, you saw that. You said, okay, we're going to take the time. We're going to do a true origin story. We're not just going to open up a file and say, hey, here's Aquaman.
Right.
And I hope that they do a decent job in Justice League to build those characters better.
We're getting to the battle, but I want to see the build up to the battle.
Right. We need to be introduced to the Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman appropriately.
And if the Green Lantern shows up or Shazam, those are the rumors.
Right.
So we'll eventually find out. But I want to see. And when the battle goes down, please don't let it be 5 minutes of battle. I want a good 15, 20 minutes of them fighting, not just Steppenwolf in Justice League, but I want to see. Is it Darkseid? Darkseid is I always confuse him. Darkseid. He's basically Thanos, who's basically Apocalypse. They're all, but they're different. I know. But anywho, just a very, very final thought on Thor Ragnarok. On the destruction of Asgard. Asgard, they say there is not a city; it is a people.
All right.
So that can mean a lot of things. That's a. That is really a testament, and we're more who we are. Even this country, we're more than just the borders that separate our states and our political beliefs. We are one people. Asgard is more than just a city. It is a people. It is a way of life. It is that commonality. And so that's one of the messages, the big messages I take away from Thor Ragnarok. You don't need the brick and mortar. We're so much more than that. So if the brick and mortar should crumble, our spirit of who we are is Asgard still lives and still endures.
Man, who thought Marvel would be so profound?
This movie was so deep, and like I said, until we started recording this, I didn't realize how many deep messages are in this comedy. So,
bravo!
Good job, bravo to Thor Ragnarok. So rush out and see it, and
please go see Guardians 3.
See Guardians 3 before Guardians 3 comes out, and then you get really confused. We've got a lot coming up on the podcast, on several episodes coming up. So we're just getting us super excited here. We need your interaction. Please let us know what you think of this episode. Hit us up on YouTube. Thank you, everyone there, or at Geek World on Twitter. You can hit us up there. Check out the Libsyn site where we host the podcast. Maybe I can get you to blog some. I need to blog some more on our Blogspot page, but we'll find something. Probably when we get closer to Oscars, we'll be blogging some more. But anyway, Thank y'all for listening. Sorry we ran a little bit over here, but we hope you thoroughly enjoyed this episode. And thank you, Scott, for joining us.
Absolutely.
Once again.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for listening out there.
Thanks for your insights and all your wonderful things you had to say. And this is Ed saying goodbye. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld with your host, SavageTechman. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+. Follow and interact with us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on iTunes and leave a review. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Read our thoughts on Blogger. See you again on the Geek Homeworld.